Dirt likes dead, dead likes dirt. Simple as that. I have coffins. Sure you don't need 8? Free to walk this earth with a mark on your flesh. And every day, that mark will remind you of the man who took everything you had.
Tell me, what's it like to go through life with a face like that? Let me show you.
Jonah Hex.
This here's my story.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Heroic Efforts. Thank you for joining us once again. We are very excited to talk about this movie today because I think there's going to be quite the divide between the three of us today. But we should introduce the three of us to all of you who are joining us for the first time. My name is Andy Foreman, and I am sitting here with Mr. Martin Fisher.
Hello there, everybody.
And Mr. Nick Talamante.
Hey, what's up, y'all?
And we are the three co-founders of No More Talking Productions, of which this podcast is a part. And we thank you all for listening to us about all of these great in air quotes movies. This is going to be a fun one. Yes, we are diving into something that we were just talking about off air that people probably haven't talked about since its opening weekend. Just a little movie, and I say little because it barely qualifies as a feature film runtime wise. Jonah Hex, the 2010 movie in air quotes.
Oh yeah, they say talking to dead people ain't natural.
See, talking to dead folks ain't natural. Sometimes they're the only ones who will point the way.
Finally, a good fucking movie, boys.
Oh God. Good Lord. Yeah, we're talking about Jonah Hex today, everybody, and this is going to be quite the reverse of the last episode, let me tell you.
Yeah, this is like... Me and Martin are definitely like kind of stunned at this one, and then friggin' Nick logs on. And he's like, "Oh, this is pretty good." I was like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, you're right, boys. Nice change of pace. Finally, the good guys come through with a good opinion. So I'm glad to vindicate this movie and tell everyone why. Out of all this Cape shit, this is one of the few ones that's actually worth watching because it's a fun, dumb time.
Oh, good Lord. I think we finally broke him, Andy. 3 episodes in, we broke him.
I know, it happened way faster than I thought I would. I thought we would at least have to get to Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance or something before he really cracked in half. But yeah, or the Wes Craven Swamp Thing or something. Yeah. But I mean, we're digging farther than down the barrel than either of those with this thing. Like this before we even start off. Because this is like a stacked cast, right? This movie is like some weird-ass direct-to-video movie you'd see in Blockbuster in the 90s with some inexplicably huge star in it, and you'd be like, how the hell did they get them in this? And then you'd realize that the movie was intended to be a blockbuster. Everyone realized it stank, so they released it to direct-to-video. That's what this movie is, except it somehow miraculously went to theaters.
And every major actor that appears has like 2 sequences at most.
Exactly.
Here's the thing. This film honestly would have done like gangbusters and like nowadays just straight to Netflix. It was honestly the original blueprint of just having a dog shit movie with like a bunch of stars in it, and then they're like, oh god, we can't justify releasing this in theaters and like losing out too much, so fuck it, send it to Netflix, let it do whatever it's going to do there, and then just write it off for taxes. So honestly, another example of this movie is a trend setter.
on what should have been sent straight to streaming, but was too early. It missed the train by like 3 years. It would have been a hot film in like 2017 when there was nothing else going on.
Hell yeah.
Oh god.
Imagine this dropping during COVID. Oh man, this would have been a banger.
Because it's like 70 minutes long and everyone's just gonna watch it 3 times and actually be like watching one real movie in that time.
Yes, it's even better than the tight 90. I think is the pinnacle of filmmaking. It is a solid 81 minutes including credits. This shit was no time.
There's the tight 90 and then there's the slim 70 that this is.
Hell yeah.
So okay, well, I think
Yeah.
I'll wheel on in talking about the whole production side of this, where we were at this point in time. So here, let's set the stage for everybody. So Jonah Hex is a cowboy comic series from like the 70s and everything. You know, they had a revival in the 80s and one in the 2000s. Go read that one. That's fantastic. That still stacks up to this day. They were talking about a film. They did. There were plans to shoot a pilot for a television show for Fox in like the year 2000, I believe, and didn't go anywhere. They didn't do anything with it. In the rumor mill drop, I'm just gonna say, I swear to God, I saw something about David Goyer doing a Jonah Hex script at some point, like post Batman Begins period, when he was like riding high and everything, and everyone felt sorry for him for Blake Trinity. So. I swear to God, there has to be, I swear I've seen it. It's like a 120-page Jonah Hex script that is R-rated, written by David Goyer. I swear to God it is out there. It's just you can't find it anywhere on the internet anymore. After that, they brought in Neville Dean and Taylor of Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance and Crank fame, which some people might cry about that, but honestly, I love them. So I see their names pop up.
Crank movies rule.
Yeah, the Crank movies rule. I love the Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance movie. It'll be fun when we talk about that one day. But, you know, they were brought in as writers, and they kind of incorporated some of the supernatural side of Jonah Hex into the film. And then... I believe it was Akiva Goldsman was like the main producer pushing for this movie, which is the wonderful guy behind Batman and Robin and the Titans television series. So mark of quality stamp right there for sure. God bless him. So there were a lot of directors that were in the toss-up for this movie. There was like Mick G, and then I'm blanking on the other ones right now, actually. But in the end, Jimmy Hayward of Horton Hears A Who fame was given the reins on Jonah Hex for some reason. I guess because Horton Hears A Who was a big success, so who knows. Anyway, they shot the film, went through its motions, and you can kind of tell watching this movie, literally from the first shot, from the first scene alone, that this is not what they shot originally. And what helps support that is that about 8 months before the movie was scheduled to release, they brought in Francis Lawrence to supervise filming on a 12 days of reshoots, which totaled in 66 pages being reshot, according to Josh Brolin. And in a movie that's only 73 minutes before credits, I don't know what is even there of the original film they shot then. If they reshot 66 minutes worth of film, I have no idea. A lot of that is gone and probably burned away in some fire that just mysteriously happened for insurance purposes. Who knows? But yeah, so there is a whole other cut of this movie likely out there. It's a worse case than, like, you know, what happened with Justice League, outside of the more shady things that went on with that one, with Justice League, and also like a solo thing where it's like, yeah, they reshot 90+% of this movie, and what you get is essentially Francis Lawrence kind of like co-directing the reshoots, taking over, and everyone clearly having a bad time of it and sweating like crazy in this damn heat in the South. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's movie.
Yeah, okay, listen. This explains why this movie has, like, for some reason, a $47 million production budget, because I'm sorry, nothing about this tells me that this movie even hit like 35 million. So it's because like they shot a whole other movie with the budget. So it is totally out there. It is a case of creative differences happening and completely steering the film the other direction. Jimmy Hayward, you know, I've not seen any of his other movies, but I can tell you right now, I don't really think this is the movie he intended to shoot. And, you know, maybe, him wearing a cowboy hat on set every day kind of caused some issues. I don't know. Maybe he's a little eccentric guy. I don't know. Never met him. He's like literally in a 30-second interview on the Blu-ray, and that's it. So, I'm not sure what's going on with there. But to set the stage for this film, you get like a little intro. So we should probably go through what the film, the story of the film, and this should only take 3 minutes maximum.
Hell yeah. So thankfully I saw this film maybe like a year ago. Like, I haven't seen it since it first like came out, and I did a rewatch last year sometime. And unfortunately for him, Marty just watched this movie in preparation for this episode. So he's gonna have to fill in the blanks for me. I remember bits and pieces of it, so we'll try to make sense of the overall synopsis. So on that note, Marty, if you can refresh my memory, how does this film open up from frame one? Because I remember it being like, wow, this is a fun time, but maybe I blocked out some of the lesser bits. So how does the film like open up?
Film opens right in the middle of the Civil War happening, and immediately with narration by good old Josh Brolin as Jonah Hex. It is a Hellboy 2019 scenario where I'm pretty sure they had a 10-minute sequence going on here that they just cut to ribbons, and they're just like, the fade in, fade out. Oh, this is the Civil War. Things sucked. I got wounded, and then I left afterwards after it was all over, and that's it. And so it opens on the Civil War. They go through his whole origin story of his family dying and him getting, in this case, burned by Quentin Turnbull. Not so much a thing in the comics, I believe, but they have to streamline for film's sake. I'm fine with that. He gets burned by Quentin Turnbull. They do a whole weird, badly drawn comic book sequence that feels like playing a PS2 superhero game where they didn't have the money for cutscenes, so they just got a comic book artist to make up stills. And that probably tells me that they probably shot these sequences actually on film, and then when they decided to throw in a bunch of other shit or take out a bunch of other shit, they're like, none of this is working. Let's just redraw over, do like illustrations instead, and have Josh Brolin narrate to make it all make sense.
I mean, this was the same era as Watchmen: The End Is Nigh, so that makes sense.
Yes, exactly. Also, the content. There's something else you got to mention too. Is that the reason that Jonah Hex, I guess, like goes on other adventures in between the first 5 minutes and the actual like big action sequence of this movie is because I guess like they find out, oh, Quentin Turnbull died in a hotel fire. That's what happened. Now I'm just gonna go do my thing now. And you're like, cool, just gonna pad this out as much as we can, I guess. As opposed to just making it a very standard revenge film. They're just like, oh, he died. We'll find him. Well, he's out there. So now he's dead now. I don't have to worry about him anymore. Like that's totally what Jonah Hex would do. Absolutely. And the film opens on probably the best action sequence in the entire movie with the Gatling gun horse. So,
oh yeah, okay. Now let's get into it because this is one of the highlights. So we're not really gonna go through the synopsis of this film because this film's kind of a fucking mess. As much as I had fun watching it, but we'll try to keep it somewhat coherent and go through the scene. So this film, after that incredible intro, we get, as Marty said, probably one of the best scenes of this movie, which is this big shootout in the town. So Jonah Hex rolls up into town, right? And he's looking for a bounty. And as he comes in, things start popping off, and there's a big gunfight. And we get this incredible moment where this is where I enjoy the film. This is kind of the essence of heroic efforts and why I think this film, as dog shit as it is, I really do enjoy bits of it just because it's so stupid fun, which is all that these cape movies should be. It's just dumb fun. And my man pulls out on his horse. He's got not one but two Gatling guns strapped on the side of his horse and starts unloading it on these guys in the big shootout. And that's how I knew, man, I'm in for a great time.
Yeah. Meanwhile, like the insane guitar riffs start hitting, it's like the totally inappropriate soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's so perfect. It's like it is like a little like bad Jonah Hex fan film.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that little moment.
I remember as a kid watching this, and I was like, okay, get on board with this because I would just like to point out, if we're talking about the era this was released in, this was 2010, right? Mm-hmm. So this is the same year as the Coen Brothers' True Grit. And like we might as well just view this as the asylum mockbuster of that because that's essentially what this is. It's like the fucking polar opposite of the Western genre that like True Grit was. I mean, I cannot believe you couldn't get two further apart movies, and it's like it's just illustrated by the opening with the Gatling gun horse because that seems like mildly cool. If that is the best part of this movie, we are in trouble. We are in fucking trouble. But what's interesting is like we were talking about like all the era surrounding it and everything. It came out the year after this. Yeah. That also opens with incoherent narration, trying to explain everything.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is this film is trend setting. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. But even that comes with some other layers to add here. It's like, okay, yeah, Green Lantern did the same thing where it's just like exposition city for no reason. Jonah Hex does the same thing, but then they slap on the extra thing of, hey, remember earlier when I mentioned like, oh yeah, they put some supernatural stuff in there. Yeah, Jonah Hex can talk to dead people for some reason, despite the fact that he doesn't have superpowers ever in the comics. I'm a little confused by that.
I would defend this. I would defend this. I think that's cool, and we'll get into it in a pivotal scene in a few moments. But I think it's fucking cool.
I think it's one of those things where, yes, I have this on DVD. There's no reason to watch this on Blu-ray. Like, who cares? Like, but
it probably looks better on DVD.
Like, so okay. It on DVD that I bought when Blockbuster was going out of business. So it has rental in white at the bottom of the box. That's how little I give a shit about this movie. But at the beginning of the DVD has an advertisement for a Jonah Hex motion comic, which is based off the Vertigo series from the 90s, which has supernatural elements in it. Yes. So I guess there's slight motivation for this.
Okay, the supernatural stuff that they pulled from the 90s run, like the various miniseries they had going on for Jonah Hex in the 90s where they had like horror elements and supernatural stuff. That's cool. I get that they pulled from it, but I as far as I can remember, the supernatural stuff was the stuff all around Jonah Hex, not him just being like, talking to dead people ain't normal.
Well, okay, here's the thing. Well, just backing up a little bit, we were talking about Jonah Hex's origins, right?
Yes.
So he comes from that era where Marvel and DC were just trying to rip off anything that was popular in movies, right? Mm. So instead of Death Wish, you have The Punisher, right? Yep. Instead of Shaft, you have Luke Cage and Black Lightning, right? Yep. And instead of Clint Eastwood, you have Jonah Hex. Yep. So if you're wondering what Jonah Hex is, imagine about The Man with No Name made in the 70s by some great writers and even better artists. Like that's all you need to know is it's DC's ripoff of Clint Eastwood. Yeah. That's it. Yep. There's nothing more to it than that.
Yep. No, that is a big part of the character.
And we kind of glossed over it real quick, but just kind of for anyone who's uninitiated and is interested in seeing this film, just to give like a brief synopsis of Jonah Hex, just because the intro is like a mess, including ours. Jonah Hex is just imagine. So we have he's played by Josh Brolin, and this is. Honestly, he does the best that he can with this role, and I think you guys even can get into how he had a lot of complaints for just trying to do any acting and how difficult it was with this makeup. Because, man, it's an interesting choice. Like they got my man Josh Brolin looking like he had a fucking stroke. Like he's just talking out the side of his mouth, just like this the whole time, just flabbing, just with one corner of his mouth.
How do you talk with that makeup?
I have no idea. It was such a
really
pain.
Good growl.
I mean, that's what I did. Instead of talk, I growled. I had to.
So I can only imagine how tough it was to do all this shit in top of him being in like a big ass duster coat with a hat on in the South filming this. Like this movie is very damp. It's a very moist ass movie, and I can only imagine having all that prosthetic and shit on my face, like, trying to do this, deliver this fucking dialogue. So big ups to Josh Brolin for thugging it out on this one. But Jonah Hex, he is a man who was in the Civil War, fought for the Confederacy under a man named, was it John Turnbull? Is that his name?
Quentin Turnbull.
Quentin Turnbull, played by John Malkovich.
Yeah.
And we'll get into this whole, again, weirdly star-studded cast for this like dog shit film. But like, we have Turnbull ordering Jonah Hex to set fire to a hospital. I believe that's what it was. And he refuses, and he ends up killing his best friend, who happens to be Turnbull's son. And from there, he goes into hiding. Turnbull finds Jonah Hex later on, kidnaps him and his family, ties him up, burns, I believe, his son and wife alive. Are they Native American? Remind me, are they Native American in this?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is from the comics.
So, Jonah is forced to, while tied to like a post or something like that, he's forced to watch his family burn alive, and then Turnbull comes over and brands his face, hence why he has the stroke face and his like little fucked up mouth. And then he's, I think, deserted or left there to die. He's found by some Native Americans. They do some indigenous magic on him. Josh Brolin then coughs up a crow with an eyeball out of his mouth, and then from then on we're off to the races, and Jonah Hex is talking to dead people, slinging guns and banging just one I guess prostitute in the entire Wild West, which is played by Megan Fox, which we'll get into.
Yeah, I do.
So yeah, just want to set the table.
I want to throw in two things. Number one, the way this movie streamlines Jonah Hex's origin, I think, is actually pretty good, because Jonah Hex's origin is like way too overly complicated and has so many different, like, to cover just Jonah Hex's like origin story would take a whole film in itself. It is so insanely like way too overly complex, and it goes through too much stuff basically. So I do appreciate like the way they streamlined it. I think it works for what they're trying to do. Turnbull being like the Joker to Batman in like Tim Burton's Batman film, I think works in this movie. It's just a shame it doesn't pull off everything else very well. The other thing I want to say real quick is that I didn't notice this until I rewatched it today. God help me. Is that okay? Hex with like his little stroke face, and he's got that little piece of like fucking skin in front of his lip.
Yeah.
When he gets burned by when he gets branded by Quentin Turnbull, it's just on his cheek. He doesn't have the little flap. He gets the flap because he burns us, because he's trying to sear the wound. So he burns an axe and puts it on his face, meaning that little flap is his own damn fault, and he won't cut it off. What? Anyway.
Build character.
This is what happens when you try to like 70s idea to life. Sometimes you do need to streamline it.
Yes.
like you don't have to have him have the little lip thing that pronounced. Like you could have it just on the side, like over here, like something that like he should flick off because he was eating it or something. Like it's like the best Jonah Hex cosplay you've ever seen. But then like, you know, like if you'd ask the cosplayer to take a picture at Comic-Con, they'd be like, "No, that's fine," and you see like drool come out because the prosthetics is so like fucking cumbersome and shit. Like that's what it would be like.
Exactly.
Again, after incredible intro, and right before the shootout, the whole impetus to this film is that Jonah Hex at this point presumes, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, presumes that Quentin Turnbull is dead, right?
Yes.
But yet there's a gang of his former confidants that are going around, and they are doing these elaborate heists on trains, and they're not just looting it, but they're taking the specific secret government components that are on these trains.
Dragon Balls.
And exact, which we'll get to, the infamous Dragon Balls in this. And so with that, Jonah is just going after, I believe, the former gang members that were riding with Turnbull, correct?
Yes, to an extent. They don't know that Quentin Turnbull is alive. We as an audience already know, because literally 2 scenes after they tell us he's dead, he shows up in the raid sequence that happens on the train. So no mystery for us. But yeah, Hex is kind of in that like, oh, he's just going after that gang because he's told to do it by fucking Will Arnett, basically.
Which leads us into, because he's a bounty hunter, and that leads us into that incredible scene in the beginning with the double Gatling guns on the horses and that big shootout. Then if correct me if I'm wrong, so he kills one of the guys, or at least the main guy he's after for the bounty, and he tells him, he's wanted, like dead or alive.
The bounty sequence is the first thing that happens after you do the whole comic book intro and everything. He's already killed the bounty people, like the bounty he's after. He's turning it in for money, and the city folk there are just like, we get more money by killing Hex than we would giving him money. Let's just kill him now. And that's what happened. Just a bunch of fucking idiots basically try to kill the hero. So he kills them all off, rides on his way, and that's when he gets approached by, I believe it was Will Arnett telling him like, oh, you know.
Yeah, Will Arnett.
Turnbull, you know, his gang's still out there, that kind of deal. And then, yeah, it's just
they should have known better than to try and kill Jonah Hex. They should have known he's the protagonist because he just rode through 2 giant words that spell out his name in the desert. They should have seen his giant fucking name like the Hollywood sign that he was riding through, and that should have given them some sort of idea that this guy's the important guy in this story, especially because the first line after he's riding through is, "This here's my story." And I'm just like, oh, this is your story? Okay. Like, the least interesting fucking Western story I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, has nobody here seen like A Fistful of Dollars? Like, just do that. It's not hard.
Anyway,
they should have just had it just be really meta and just have Jonah be like, "I'm what's called a protagonist." when they were like, we should kill Jonah Hex. He's like, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm what they're called the main character.
I'm called the main character in this DC Universe production. You can also find me in the comic book section. Anyway.
Like, is he having a fucking stroke?
Right. Yeah. Josh, are you okay,
so
Mr. Brolin?
Passes out.
Can I just bring? Well, I just wanted to bring up before we get into the plot. We're talking about
Andy's
how bad his
fire.
makeup is. I am. How bad his makeup is. Campaign for this role, right?
Yes.
And he hired a makeup artist to do Jonah Hex makeup on him. There's like a picture out there that's like sort of like a headshot of him. Yeah. That makeup is better than this.
Yeah, that was Thomas Jane. That was Thomas Jane who campaigned for it. Yeah,
and that was just something that Thomas Jane paid for out of his own pocket.
Yeah.
Like, and that makeup is better than this. It's so depressing. Like, anyway, continue.
So after that, after the incredible sequence of him riding through his own name, he's approached by Will Arnett because I guess he's just, Jonah Hex is just the best in the West for a bounty hunter, and they need somebody to track down the Turnbull gang, especially. Now, again, remind me, are they aware of his history? Do they have like documents on him, like, oh, you rode with the Turnbolts, or
they know his history pretty much in the film. Like they already know. They know he's the protagonist.
They know Mr. Hex. We need a main character, you see. So they approach him, and this is where we get. They're at some kind of fort, I believe, and there is one of the members, or at least a man who like knows about what's going on there. They're set to interrogate it. They're set for Jonah Hex to interrogate him. Now, unfortunately, when Jonah Hex arrives, that guy's dead.
Whoops.
Now that would be unfortunate except for the fact that, and I think this is actually a cool thing that the movie does, whether or not it has history in the comics, I don't care, is that Jonah Hex has the ability to talk to dead people. So he approaches this corpse, and when he touches it, it's reanimated and slowly starts to burn. And as Marty's alluded to, talking to the dead ain't natural.
See, talking to dead folks ain't natural.
And that's why the corpse starts to burn up. And he has this interrogation sequence with it. And before we kind of continue on, again, I want to defend it. I think it's kind of neat.
Dead likes dirt, dirt likes dead.
Dirt likes dead, dead likes dirt. Simple as that.
Incredible.
Them's probably hellhounds. I wouldn't try to pet them. Okay, also, speaking of the shit-ass makeup, why the fuck does this character that has all of these, like, lines, like all these trailer lines, why can't he speak? Like, why do you give all these, like, epic, like, badass lines to a character that can't even get them out? Like...
Listen. When the movie mentioned hellhounds for the first time, when I saw, I'm like, are we going to get like Jonah Hex fighting some cool like hell dog beasts that are all fiery and shit? And like now you never see them. They're just like They're just stock dog sounds in the distance.
That's called world building, okay?
Yeah.
It's meant to exist in the audience's mind, okay? Like movies don't always have to show you everything. This is from a more classic era of cinema, okay?
Marty. It's called show don't tell. Okay, what happened to subtext?
You're absolutely right, because when they do show a monster thing, it is so fucking disappointing because Hex never actually fights it. You're right.
Monster thing again. I forget.
That's
the monster thing. Oh, that's right. I forgot this movie's so bad I forgot that there was a snake man in it.
When the fuck was there a snake man? What are you talking about?
See, the reason you don't remember it is because for whatever reason they have a snake man in it and Jonah Hex never fights it. So what happens is, okay, you gotta go find him. Let's go. Oh, the corpse told me about this guy. I'm gonna go find him at this carnival weird circus fight club thing. I'm gonna go there right now. He goes there. He gets there. Michael Shannon is doing his best that he can with 2 lines of dialogue. And he's like, presenting the venomous snake man. And then they just have a fucking snake dude who's just like bleeding acid out of his mouth, fighting this big muscly guy in the fucking ring. Meanwhile, Jonah Hex is talking to the next target he has to get, and he's like, well, I'm gonna kill you now. Oh no, not if I kill you first, Hex. No, Andy. Oh, go ahead. What are you gonna say? I was just
I was just gonna say, where he finds this is at Doc Cross Williams's like carnival or whatever, who is played by Michael Shannon. Yes. So this is a sequel setup.
Yes,
they're trying to set up a sequel.
This is sequel
instead of just having him fight the snake man.
This is a sequel bait because Michael Shannon is a character who plays a character from the comics that is kind of cool, and he's just like, and he looks actually kind of cool in the costuming department wise. They totally don't use him at all. So anyway, And they're like, okay, you're like, you're like, okay, the rules of script writing say at this point, Jonah Hex should be shoved into the snake pit and have to fight the snake man deal, right? No, what happens is Jonah Hex just kind of shoves the guy into the pit and then runs away. And that's it. And that's all the snake man you ever get. There you go.
That's probably the snake man. I wouldn't try to pet him if I was you.
And don't try and give me some bullshit Indiana Jones excuse of like, no, it's cool because you get to see a guy twirling swords and then he shoots them. Isn't that so cool? It's like, no, I want to see Jonah Hex fight this fucking snake man.
Okay, but the movie surrounding this is not Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Nick might think that. I don't know.
No, I remember now because I was just like, what the fuck are you smoking? There's no snake man in this. But now I remember that scene. Yeah, that was definitely weird. There's definitely a moment like now that it's all coming back to me, I'm like, huh. Anyway, I guess.
Yeah.
And then they go on from there. So,
this whole movie is that snake man bit.
Yeah, literally like, huh, okay, moving on. So this starts a whole kind of sequence of events where Jonah Hex is trying to stop Malkovich. We're trying to stop John Malkovich's Quentin Turnbolt and his gang of loony characters, including the evil leprechaun known as fucking Michael Fassbender.
Michael Fassbender's in this.
Which we will get to. And basically, he's going around trying to stop Turnbull from stealing all the pieces of some secret doomsday device.
See, one day with weapons like this, you'd be able to flatten continents. But we're going to have to content ourselves with starting small.
Now, what is that thing and what is it that he's after? Well, after breaking into, the Capitol, like underneath the Capitol?
Yeah,
they do something like that. They do a January 6th underground.
Yeah.
And they raid some secret bunker under the U.S. Capitol. And what's inside of it? Dragon Balls.
Yep.
That's right, folks. Orange glowing orbs of mass destruction, apparently. And if Turnbolt collects them all, he can make a wish to make the South rise again, I guess. And that's kind of the whole impetus of the plot is Jonah Hex trying to track down Turnbolt, stop him from collecting the Dragon Balls, and making his big wish at the end. So yeah, that's the only plot this movie really needs. We can just get into specific scenes, but like that's literally the long and short of it.
I think
70-minute film.
I think we spent more time talking about the plot than the actual people that worked on this movie.
Yeah, I'm over it. I don't like. I'm done talking about the actual fucking story in this movie. Let's just talk about like all the fun bits of it.
In case anybody's listening that thinks like, oh, that sounds like kind of a complex plot, it's not. Like,
There's just so much just stuffed into like 73 minutes of movie. It's just like every sequence is another fucking scene of exposition or the next story beat setup. So you have to fucking go through every fucking motion. Anyway, crossbows with dynamite on. It's pretty cool. That's a cool sequence.
Okay, what else is in this thing? What else is in this fucking thing? Yes. Who gives him the crossbows with dynamite?
Yeah, let's talk about that. So on the topic of, again, this stacked ass cast for no fucking reason, dude. We'll just go. It's easier to talk about like characters and brief moments in this film than the actual plot.
Yes,
it's more worth it to talk about that.
Yep.
So on that note, Jonah Hex has some like wonky Looney Tunes Acme ass weapons in this film, which is why I kind of like really enjoy it because it's just stupid. Like the film opens up with like dual Gatling guns on a horse. That's a 12-year-old's like idea of like what a cool cowboy would do, and that's why I think it works because it's just so silly. It's so fucking silly. And even sillier than that is, what if he had dual mini crossbows that shot not bolts, but dynamite? And that was provided by his good friend. I can't remember the fucking guy's name, but it's played by the late great Lance Reddick.
Yep.
And
played
this
wonderfully.
is. Yeah. I mean, they really do what they can in this with this incredible story. But he plays Smith, just known as Smith,
because he makes the weapons. Get it? Do you get it?
Yeah. Which I really got to hand it to the filmmakers on this for having restraint here and not calling him Blacksmith and just leaving it as that.
They could have, and Jonah Hex could have made a really inappropriate joke about it.
Yeah, and instead they opted for an incredible piece of dialogue where Smith, again played by Lance Reddick, a black man, telling Jonah Hex like, Jonah, you never owned slaves, but you just didn't like being told what to do. That's why you fought for the South. Which was already like, I'm raising my eyebrows. I'm like, okay, yeah. So we're just skirting past the fact that he was a Confederate, and then he just jumps into it, and he's just like, Jonah, why don't you tell me something? If you don't give a damn about the Confederacy and you don't care about the Union, what are you fighting for? Now, that's interesting to me, that line specifically, and having Lance Reddick deliver that, because me, as a black man, I would be kind of looking at Jonah Hex sideways, least of all handing him a gun. If he's like, Jonah, are you fencing on the civil, on slavery and the Civil War? Like, how do you feel just before I hand you this loaded weapon, before I hand you this Looney Tunes ass gun? How do you feel about the whole slavery thing? And it's an exemplary moment in this film of like why I love it, because it just has absolutely dumb guy politics.
Yes.
And it's it like when you boil down this character asking Jonah Hex his opinion about the Civil War, and Jonah Hex giving like, again, just like the most dumb guy libertarian answer of like, I'm not really political, not even libertarian, just the most dumb guy centrist answer of like, I'm not really political, basically, about one of the most political moments in US history, the Civil fucking War.
Right.
And then just having him be like, I don't really care either way, So it's like, I don't know, dude. Like, before I hand you the gun, I'd be like, I mean, you don't care either way. Like,
well,
at
least he's not a real Confederate, because he wasn't just like, you should talking to dead people ain't natural, but slavery is. If he had said that, that would have been it, man. The movie would have been over.
Yeah, I was waiting for the moment when Jonah was just like,
oh my god,
it wasn't,
the veil comes off.
Dude, what if he like dug up the founding fathers and like tried to talk to them to see like what their like opinion of it was? He's like, I'll solve this conflict real fast.
Zombified founding fathers just come out and just like, well, you see. Oh my god.
He's up there on Mount Vernon, is digging in there. He's like, let's just see what they have to say about this.
He's digging at the fucking statues of them, the heads or whatever, at Mount Rushmore, because he thinks they're buried there, because he's a fucking idiot.
I mean, this is a dumbass character.
Yeah. Oh, good lord.
That's why it's great.
Yeah, so we'll just lightly touch on that real quick. The Confederate angle about Jonah Hex has existed since the comics. It's complicated and not something I really want to tap dance around too much. It is a really dated idea that they probably should have just gotten rid of. And to be fair, they've never really addressed since like the 2000s run, basically. They're just like, I'll just ignore that. He's wearing a duster, that kind of stuff. He's wearing Confederate garb, and they do mention it in his origin story, but they don't so much make it as prevalent in the character himself. He does definitely have the whole libertarian mindset of just like, well, I just don't like people telling me what to do. And fair enough, I guess. But yeah.
And that, again, that's why I love it, because it's just like he has like a fifth grader's understanding of like everything. He's just like, I don't like being told what to do. And then it's just like, Jonah, you can't own slaves. And he's just like, that's it. Not even because he has slaves. He has none. He's just like, I didn't have any to begin with. But you know what? I'm upset. You told me what to do.
Dude, this guy would have had a field day in like 2016. He would have had so much fun like yelling at people on college campuses.
He would have been calling everybody cucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Why are we burning these tiki torches for?
Yeah, he's just a part of the march. He has no idea what's going on. Yeah. He just didn't like. They're like, hey, you can't march out here at these hours.
He's just like, you can't tell me what to do.
Oh, what if in 2020 he kept trying to not wear a COVID mask because of the way his mouth is all fucked up? And he's like, I have a medical condition where I can't wear a mask. I just don't like being told what to do.
I can't breathe with a mask on. I don't like being told what to do. Oh my god. This is the Jonah Hex film series we needed. It was just Jonah Hex as a bumbling fucking moron. We needed that. Oh, good lord. Okay, we should probably move on from Lance Reddick, who is wonderful. God rest his soul and everything. What other character should we mention? How about, Megan Fox is kind of like a main character. We should probably mention her real quick. Megan Fox.
Is she really in this?
Okay. She's at the start of the movie and the end of the movie and disappears for the whole midsection, except for her like weird boyfriend stalker thing that's like just there just to give her something to do, I guess. But Megan Fox plays a prostitute character that is given the name Tallulah Black in like the last fucking action sequence of the movie, which means absolutely nothing to audiences, but Jonah Hex fans are fucking seething in the audience while they're watching that, because it's like Tallulah Black is like a scarred fucking woman that like went through hell and back, and she's like just as every bit as tough as fucking Jonah Hex is, and you're just like, oh, they just turned her into Megan Fox. I
think
oh, go ahead.
If I remember correctly, like there was controversy at this time because of like how just kind of like almost like disturbing, like how skinny she had to get for this role, like with the corset, and just like the overall costume design, and what she had to Megan Fox had to put herself through to like kind of fit with this like aesthetic that they were going for. And yeah, dude, it's really fucking jarring. Like before I started watching this film again, I remember that controversy and thinking it was like typical fair enough kind of like stuff where it's just like, yeah, I mean, almost every actress in Hollywood, especially at that time, had to fit a certain mold in the early aughts or the 2010s, and it very unhealthy body image and health presentation, right? Yeah. Then I watched the fucking film and I realized, Jesus Christ, no, it's actually kind of disturbing, like how tight like that corset is on her, and like how like shrunk her like waistline is on this. I'm like, is she okay? How the fuck were these guys not put in prison for putting her through this? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, they didn't even need to really do that, because I mean, like, Tallulah Black in the comics is not like a thin as fucking rails woman. She's like just an average sized person, basically. So I mean, I get it. They did it for the 2010 sex appeal. I get it. It's just, yeah, it's a little skeevy when you watch the movie with that mindset. Her opinions on the film have actually gotten better as time has gone on, because when it first came out, she's like, nobody should see it. Now she's just like, well, I'm not that bad in it. And that's really, she's just like, I guess you can watch it.
You know,
I don't. So
I can respect that. I can respect that.
So, but I'm curious, like Andy, because like you have read Jonah Hex comics like I have, so I'm just curious, like, what your opinion on this version of that very well beloved character in the Hex fandom, all 12 of us.
I couldn't care less about what one Hex like minor character like is. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of the
dare things. You?
It's just, well, it's like as bad as Star Wars, though. You know what I mean? It's as bad as Star Wars, where they try to name drop stuff in this Disney era, where they expect audiences to go like, oh, but it's like, unless you're reading like Heir to the Empire or some shit, or like Shadows of the Empire in like 1992. Yeah. Nobody even knows who it is. It's the same thing with this. It's like she's Tallulah Black. Ooh, like ooh. It's like, you know what? It's like at the end of Hellboy 2019, which is, we're going to be comparing it to it a lot, where the Abe Sapien hand comes up. Like, nobody knows what that is. More people know what that is because at least there were other movies. But it's like, this is, or the, oh my God, Lobster Johnson in Hellboy 2019, where they expected audiences to just like lose their minds. Like, how is this a reveal? Like,
all I'm hearing, Andy, is that you're not a real hex head. All right.
I have to take my comics that I sold you back now. How dare you?
The fact that you weren't soy facing and doing a YouTube thumbnail when you heard the name Tallulah Black in this, all right, you're just not a real hex head, man. Just be honest.
I
fair enough.
I'll provide my background on this real quick. Before I saw this movie, I had read my first ever Jonah Hex run of comics, and it was called The Six Gun War, which was like the only overarching story in like the 2000s run of Jonah Hex. And Tallulah Black plays a big role in that story, so that's my context going into the movie. And like, oh, it's Tallulah Black. I'm like, oh, the fuck, it's not. What is this shit? I'm like, she doesn't even have like a fucking like little scar or something on her face. She's supposed to look more fucked up than Hex is. And I'm like, what the fuck, man?
And see,
Martin, they were saving that for the sequel.
The sequel they definitely knew they were going to get after they reshot 66 minutes of the 73-minute movie. You're like, we could save it, guys.
Well, on the topic of marked up faces, we should talk about easily the best character in this entire fucking film, Michael Fassbender.
Yes.
Playing, I can't even remember the guy's name. He's just this evil 6-foot leprechaun. And it's incredible. He's having a great time. If nothing else, everyone else in this film seems like they're miserable. But I think, as Andy pointed out before we got the show running, Michael Fassbender, he's having a great time. He's kicking back. He's doing this. He's hamming it up.
Oh, yeah.
He's just playing just the most Lucky Charms ass fucking Mick in the world. And he's having a great fucking time doing it.
He knew Magneto was coming a year later, so he's like, I don't have to give a crap about this. He was going to be Magneto, and he was going to be in a Ridley Scott movie. He was fine.
Yeah, it's funny because like if you ever watch like the X-Men movies with him as Magneto, it's like, you know, he'll have his moments where he really gets into it and his accent starts to like leak out just a little bit if you listen for it. And this one, he just sounds like the freaking Lucky Charms leprechaun the whole damn time. And he's like, that's literally his entire cadence through the whole fucking movie.
I'm not even trying to be like stereotypical. It is straight up just a Lucky Charms ass like leprechaun. Like I don't know what direction they gave him, or if he's just going on his own, but they really said, Michael, we need you to be the most Irish that's ever like walked the earth. You need to be like just a walking fucking shamrock.
You need to be dripping 4-leaf clovers behind you.
Yeah. I mean, in an interview, Fassbender, he likened the character to the Riddler, and then Malcolm McDowell's performance in Clockwork Orange. So he said that was like the like foundation of like the character's motivation and kind of his inspiration for his performance. And I'm like, I gotta say, you know, it kind of makes sense if you took a Clockwork Orange and the Riddler, but like Jim Carrey's Riddler, then yeah, this tracks.
Sure, yeah, I could see that honestly, because it's just like it's those performances. If you correct them all the way past where the dial just completely falls off, and now it's just like her, and he's throwing knives everywhere and all that fun shit. And he's got a tattoo on his face or whatever. Yeah, it's fucking.
Oh yeah,
bizarre.
Oh my god,
it's
we
fun.
We can't even skirt past this. We need to just kind of paint the picture real quick. So again, we have Michael Fassbender playing the tallest leprechaun that's ever walked the earth. He has a little bowler hat. It's very adorable. And then he has, for no fucking reason, they never explain it, and they just don't even mention it. He has like on his bottom, like on his chin, from his bottom lip down to his chin, he just has like these like black tribal tattoos for some fucking reason.
Yep.
And it's just it's incredible.
I have no idea where that's from, but I do want to quickly point out, if y'all have ever seen the AMC show Hell on Wheels, which is a fantastic Western show, there's a character in that has the same exact tattoos that's a prostitute, and it's never explained, I believe in that show, and it's like the same exact ones that Michael Fassbender does.
You've activated something.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm a huge. If you couldn't tell by the way that I ride for this movie, I'm a huge Hell on Wheels head. Like I love that show, and the reason why that is a character not too dissimilar to Megan Fox. It's she's a prostitute. She's a big main character. Unlike Megan Fox's character in this one, she actually has a huge arc and actual development in it. But the reason why she's marked up is because she was taken in by a certain, I can't remember the name, but it's a certain Indian tribe, and they had marked her. So they had marked her on her chin. I can't remember if that was for like slavery reasons or for what, but she was marked by a tribe, and that kind of plays into a big part of her character. Anyway, that's how to jump in it. You activated something. I heard Hell on Wheels mentioned, so I had to jump in.
I remember that. By the way, if you haven't seen Hell on Wheels, please watch it. It's a fantastic show. Cole Meany is great. Anson Mount's great. Common's great. The freaking weird Swedish guy is great. Go watch it. It's a fantastic show. Anyway, maybe that is part of Michael Fassbender's character. It's somewhere in the cutting room floor where they had another hour of the film still to go, and they're just like, nobody gives a shit. Cut it out. we gotta fit as many showings as we can in a day for this. But yeah, he's delightful. Andy, do you have any opinions on this one?
Well, as you guys were talking about it, I just thought, I'm like, why isn't he the main villain?
Yeah,
what if he was just a serial killer, like killing people out in the West or something, and Jonah Hex has to track him down, and it's this insane dude versus Clint Eastwood? Like, oh, dude, I mean, you could have just made Malcolm McDowell from A Clockwork Orange versus Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name. That's what this movie could have been.
Oh, that would have been so much better and cheaper.
I know. It's so weird because it's like this movie has like around the same budget as like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, but this is like in like 2010 money though. But like you don't see any of it on screen at all. You're just like, is this some like money laundering scheme?
Yeah. Now before we started recording, I mentioned, or maybe I didn't. I forget at this point. Wild Wild West. Listen. Okay, that movie is riddled with John Peters like taking over as producer and everything. And if you watch this movie, you would swear to God he had worked on this movie, because there's so many of these weird like eccentric ideas that they just throw in there for no reason that you're like, did John Peters do this because it's just like, oh yeah, cowboy thing where they have a super mega weapon that has like glowing balls and shit, and it fires off, and this can't just be a cowboy movie or a cowboy versus serial killer movie. It's got to be the big one. It has that John Peters vibe of like producer oversight big time on this one. And I would have loved something with like Michael Fassbender as like a slasher kind of character going around killing folk, and Jonah Hex has to stop him. But on the downside, we want to get John Malkovich absolutely sleeping through this movie.
Oh my God.
Before we forget John Malkovich's character in this, let's talk about Turnbull for a little bit, because wow, if Michael Fassbender's having just a great time just fucking doing whatever in this film, and just having just a grand old time, probably getting drunk on set, wouldn't blame him, God bless him. John Malkovich, who normally is known for being like a weird, eccentric weirdo for his like characters on screen, my man is just completely just 1,000-yard stared like through the entire thing of this. Like he is just I guess he's going for like stoic, maniacal kind of villainy thing. But man, he just looked like he's just there clocking in and clocking the fuck out. He is just not having a good time.
I'm trying to think of a performance. I'm trying to think of a performance we could equate it to. And the most I can think is it seems like he's trying to do is like Kevin Spacey from Seven style like character. Like with just like the quiet, measured way of speaking and everything. And just I'm reaching here. No, I know I'm really reaching here, but that's because there's nothing. That's because there's nothing in it. It's like John Malkovich.
A comparable performance would be something like Toby Kebbell in Fantastic Four, where you're just like clearly have no interest in this version whatsoever, and it's like literally from the first scene you see him in, where you're just like, you killed my son, now I'm gonna take my revenge, and that's it. And he says it's so deadpan. You're just like, oh, and he goes like, you took everything from me, everything I ever loved. And he's just delivering in the most sandpaper dry tone ever. It's bad, and I think it's because he used up all of his energy that he has in the retirement home filming Red the same year. So
I want to know, how is it that Red is like a better movie than this?
The better DC comic book movie from that year is Red. Red is from a different imprint from DC.
Yes, and also just like Jonah Hex, Red is like the graphic novel is insanely short. Yes. Like you could finish it in like 15 minutes, and it's a graphic novel.
Yep.
I will say though, just to button our discussion on John Malkovich, because there really ain't shit we can really talk about his character.
Well, okay.
I will say his accent is certainly something.
It's a choice.
You can't say he doesn't give anything to this role, because he certainly does a attempt at a Southern accent.
Well, okay, we can't really talk about his character, but we can talk about the final fight, which is
let's do it.
The most reshot thing I've ever seen in my life, because it's like they're fighting. Okay, let's just set the stage for this. Big super weapon is going to shoot giant dragon balls at Ulysses S. Grant on the 4th of July. And also Lance Reddick is there because they got to bring something back.
Looking up, he's just looking up like with full joy and hope at like the Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah, and so that's the big plan, is to just shoot dragon. Also, I don't even know what this weapon does. It just shoots like cannonballs that then explode. Yeah. Like it's just bombs. Like that's just all it is. Like you could just throw dynamite and
listen. Dude. What the weapon is we already reshot the movie. We need something to streamline the plot. Let's make it a super weapon.
You know what it essentially is? It is like a giant version of Jonah Hex's crossbow dynamite things. They should have just made a giant crossbow, put it on the ship, and just had like fucking dynamite the size of cars.
Michael Fassbender's the one pulling it like it's a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Yeah, well, I mean, this movie is a cartoon.
I would have loved if they had just a big ass ballista shooting like Acme ass giant cartoonish sticks of dynamite.
Yeah, that would have been better than this. But so it's this big Gatling gun that's just shooting Dragon Balls, and then somehow Jonah Hex and freaking Megan Fox end up on the ship, and then they get out, and then they start fighting people, and there's a really lame run where he runs through this tiny little hallway holding 2 guns, and he's got this giant, oversized like trench coat on, but like there's just this really weird shot, and when we cut it up and put this like on the social media, we could put the clip in. But he's like running through the hall with two guns like held up, but he's got this like little dainty run with this giant gray coat.
The set they built with their reshoot money was too small, basically.
Yeah, and so then he fights Michael Fassbender, which is like very anticlimactic.
It's very anticlimactic, and yet Michael Fassbender gets a cooler death sequence than Quentin Turnbull does.
Yeah, like,
100%.
Like, yeah, basically what happens is Jonah Hex sets his fist on fire. And no, I'm not explaining that wrong. That's what he does. He sets his fist on fire, punches freaking Michael Fassbender in the face, kills him, then kills him by sticking him in the propeller of the ship, then brings him back to life. Somehow he's not cut in half. His face just looks totally normal. But like then he brings him back to life, and then he just punches him into dust.
Yeah, he just holds him until he's like burning up because he's been alive too long after death, and then he just like punches him into nothing. I do want to mention what the fuck is with that ADR line when after he like clips his fucking head, he goes like, "That was for my son." It's just, you're just like what? Yeah, like, what? And it's like, why your son specifically? Because he never says this is for my wife.
No, he says this is for my wife when he sticks him into the propeller. Then he brings him back up, brings him back to life. He goes, "So this is for my son," and punches him. And then I'm just like, I'm like, this comic book was based on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. How did we get here?
But yeah, then he goes,
which is.
I mean, I would like to equate this to something, because, like, imagine if a Punisher movie all of a sudden had him fighting possessed demon people, and like, you know what I mean? It's like so far out of like what you would want from the character.
These are ideas that can work in a one-shot comic book, not your one film adaptation of the character you're ever gonna get.
Yeah, exactly. Well, until we start making movies for DC. Right. James Gunn, hit us up.
We got the sauce here, man.
James Gunn, just get Josh Brolin and Michael Fassbender back, and we will make your serial killer versus Jonah Hex movie.
We'll make it for literally 1/5 the money.
Oh, yeah.
You can send it to Max. We don't care. Like, just let us do it. Yeah. But anyway, so then it ends with him. This is just baffling. Like, this is insane. Megan Fox fights some thug up there so that she has something to do. It means nothing. But then Jonah Hex is fighting John Malkovich in like the fucking gears of the ship. But then also there's a dream sequence where he's fighting him in like some big red Mars looking landscape. And what I want to know, what do you fellas think? Which one was the reshoot? Do you think the fight on the ship was the reshoot? Or do you think the fight in the desert was the reshoot? Because I think the fight in the desert was the original one. Or I think it was maybe something that was meant to happen in the middle of the movie.
I'm going to disagree with you on that, Andy. I think the fight that happens in the desert is the reshoot sequence because they had already filmed the fight on the boat. And I guarantee you what it was is they didn't have the super weapon plot line yet. That was come up with at a reshoot. I guarantee it because it's so ham-fisted. Basically, the final fight was going to take place on this steamboat ship because that's just where Quentin Turnbull was for whatever plot reason. He fights them, and that's it. And then the reshoot period where they're like going over like, man, it's really not working. They were probably just like, oh, it's because like the way we shot this film is like the big climactic villain has like no fucking final fight with the big hero. There's no climactic battle. So what they did is they're just like, okay, we're gonna have the dream sequence and then edit it in and go back and forth between both scenes as if it's a big epic fight happening at once.
Well, it's not a big. Oh fuck! We don't have the big epic ending for John Malkovich because Jonah Hex already dedicated the kill for his wife and son, both to Michael Fassbender,
to the side character.
That'd be funny if he said, "This is for my wife" when he killed him, and then like 10 minutes later, like when he kills John Malkovich, he's like, "And this is for my son." Like, he's been holding on to that.
It's like last words. He's like, "What?"
Okay, but it's fascinating because like their fight, it's like some weird dream sequence. There's like a crow. He rises up out of the fucking dirt. No, wait. So, no, wait. Okay, we have to go back because this is fascinating.
Okay. We'll quickly explain it. So that dream fight sequence happens earlier, halfway through the film.
Yes.
And it's a whole dream sequence that gets set up, and you see the whole fight during that. And then when you see it again at the end of the film, it's literally just that same fight put in back and forth now with the actual fight that's going on.
Okay, so Jonah Hex is wounded. He gets his horse to take him away, right?
Yep.
And then he's like stumbling through like the woods or whatever freaking like arboretum that was behind Warner Brothers Studios that they filmed in. Like he's stumbling around the woods, and then he's having these hallucinations of himself fighting Turnbull in like the desert, right?
Yep.
And then like Turnbull gets the upper hand, which it's a hilarious that John Malkovich probably in pretty good shape, but it's hilarious that he could get the upper hand on Josh Brolin in any scenario. Josh Brolin is just fueled by like grit and cigarettes. So he like fights him in the dream, and then like there's a fucking hilarious thing where he has like the two derringers pointed at his head and he shoots him, and then in the real world Jonah Hex just collapses.
Mm-hmm.
Then Jonah Hex is taken in by some Native Americans, because if you're in a bad Western, you always have to use that as a plot point to get yourself out of a tough spot. They do some weird ass medicine man shit on him where he throws up a crow. I'm not even kidding. Oh, and then they have that epic shot, and by epic I mean stupid, where he like sits up and like the fucking anime lines go into his face. He's like, Turnbull! And then he's riding with the fucking guitar riff, and then he goes to the post office and sends a telegram. Like, and he's sending a telegram in an accurate way, where he's like, "Turnbull's going to attack the U.S. Stop. I'm going to do this stuff." And I love how they have like the epic like cut, like they have like the dramatic cut to the guy doing it, and the guy like hears the plan, and you see him going, "Oh, like, ooh, I'm so scared." It's like, but
oh my god!
Like there's like a montage of him sending a telegram. Like it's like
that whole sequence is incredible, dude. Because you said it perfectly. Like I don't think I'm gonna have to insert clips of this, because like the way he snaps the fuck up off of like the table where he's getting like the ritual done on him, and then he's like you said, the anime like line, and then he's just like fast cut, and then just like him coke the fuck out west, and then it's not to go like on some epic like shootout. It's not into like where a normal film would do like a montage sequence. It's not even to do like straight to like the fight. It's literally like all that crazy shit is happening. Just go to the fucking post office and send a goddamn telegram.
It's just incredible. It's incredible how nothing this movie is.
You need that big epic sequence of him going to the fucking post office. You're building up the music, the hype and everything, and you see the music just stop and just cut to him in the post office. Like, there's going to be Quentin Turnbull. Stop. And that's just it.
It's cut to him waiting in line.
Yeah,
at the post office.
Oh my god!
It's like he's like hands are like swinging his big ass coat.
Right.
The whole reason we brought this up is because the end fight between him and John Malkovich cuts back and forth between him rising from the grave that John Malkovich put him in the red Mars clay dirt, apparently reshot scene. So he rises up, and then he's fighting Turnbull, and there's that great shot where like he like, what does he do to Turnbull in the like Mars part again? Because like I remember, but like doesn't he like choke him out with his own cane or something?
Yeah,
and then like there's that part where it shows him like punching directly at the camera, and it looks like something out of The Room. Like with the, like you can literally see like the fucking like matte lines around him with the green screen. Like it looks like Christopher Reeve in Superman 4. Like it's that bad. And so then he like sticks John Malkovich's head in a gear in the real world, and instead of decapitating him, he's just staying there. He's like, oh,
choked out.
Yeah, and then the fucking
the Dragon Balls get stuck.
But then, does he have any like fucking like badass ending line for John Malkovich? I forget.
I've watched this movie 5 hours ago. I've completely forgotten at this point. I had clocked out mentally at that point.
So anyway, the Dragon Balls fall. John Malkovich is there in the gears, and he like it blows up, and you hear him go like ha. Like, as it blows up.
That's right. He does a little ha.
And then Jonah Hex and Tallulah Black jump into the fucking ocean.
And that horrible fucking shot of them jumping in the water with the big CG explosion. Oh my god, I love it. This movie's horrible.
Then you go straight to the ending where they basically rip off Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he's in the president's office, and he's like, I want to make you the sheriff of America. And he's like, nah. And he's like, they hand him a badge that says like of America. I'm like, oh, really? That's what you want to give this like Confederate war criminal? Like, this is like 10 years after the Civil War, and you're going to give this like guy who's fighting on the Confederate side, like, you're going to promote him to the sheriff of America? This is like when they took the Nazis and had them build NASA. Like, it's like, you're like, I know you were on the opposite side, but come on over. Like, be the sheriff of America. Yeah, but then they have to have the badass line where he's like, you know where to find me, and he like tosses the badge back because he's not going to be held down by any government because he
can't tell me what to do.
He doesn't like being told what to do. And then he walks out, and literally the exact scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark where they're on the steps outside, like, and they walk away. She's got the umbrella and everything, and he's like, I told him to, go screw or whatever. And she's like, oh, Jonah, and they like walk away hand in hand. It is exactly the ending of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Then he goes and visits Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who, by the way, is in this movie. Like, for one scene, like, he goes and visits Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I think there's a dog like that, like he picks up like at some point. No, it's the dog from Doc Cross Williams' Carnival.
Because to make him a relatable character, he has to have a dog sidekick for a few scenes.
So then he like rides away, and then like, what's the ending line? I forget. Like, I forget the ending line.
I like how you brought up Jeffrey Dean Morgan. That's like halfway through the movie, not the end.
No, but he goes to visit his grave at the end to give us some sort of emotional resonance.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan is in this movie, by the way, for one scene. Again, stat cast, one character. Insane because he's in The Losers also this year and was just in Watchmen the year prior. What the fuck is going on with this movie? Anyway, the movie ends at 73 minutes and 11 seconds. With a flame burning through the screen, revealing the name of director Jimmy Hayward. So the fucking guitar riff's like, wow, wow. It's just like, and you just sit there and you're like, oh my God. And it's like, this is an equally bad movie, but I want to just insert that clip of Al Pacino from Jack and Jill where he just turns to Adam Sandler and he goes, burn this. Like, no one must ever see this.
Burn this.
I'm sorry?
This must never be seen by anyone.
I mean, like, Fantastic Four 2015 is like more coherent than this.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
I think we've done an incredible job of matching this film with the way we've talked about the synopsis.
I think we've made this whole episode basically talking about the synopsis because this movie's so fucking incomprehensible on just a fucking technical level that you have to go into detail on everything because it's just baffling, some of the choices that are made here.
Well, it's so simple, but at the same time, it's so complicated. You're just like, what? True. Like, what is going? Like, Wes Bentley's in this movie, and then he gets killed by a cane in the throat. Like, so like. Oh, remember when John Malkovich tries to intimidate Wes Bentley by knocking his tea off the table?
Wait. Can we go back real quick to the I just want to make a quick point.
Okay.
About how fucking like all jokes aside, like this movie, obviously sucks dog ass, but like it's for me this film really, it kind of fails as like a Western because they couldn't even do the bare minimum to do like just the most basic quote unquote badass like ending fight with John Malkovich, like with him. What does every Western end with? You shoot the bad guy, you say something slick either before or right after, but you fucking put a cap in him right with your big iron on your hip, and then you walk away. You know what I mean? That's like every Western does that. This film doesn't. Instead, both in the dream sequence and real life, Jonah Hex chokes out Turnbolt in just the like easily the lamest way I've ever seen depicted in film. It's not like all gritty on top of him, hands claps like Homer Simpson style. He's like choking him out with this foo-foo ass cane, and then he puts his head and gets him stuck between gears before a Dragon Ball falls on him. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Do you remember in the dream sequence part where he kills him? He like shoots him, and then he like walks up to the dead body and like shoots it again. He's like with like I think it's like with Derringers, like the tiny little pea shooter, like prostitute pistol. It's so embarrassing.
Listen.
It's like
I watched the 10-minute behind the scenes video on the Blu-ray of this movie because I bought the Blu-ray for $5. Give me a break. It does not look any better than the DVD. I can confirm it looks like shit. Anyway, there's like the 10-minute behind the scenes sequence, behind the scenes special feature on the film. 8 minutes of it are them talking about the comic book, and then 2 minutes of them is dedicated to the film. A minute of those 2 minutes is just scenes from the film playing. So there's clearly not much they ever want to talk about again with this movie. But I will say, they had the original creator, Tony DeZuniga, I forget how to pronounce his name, honestly, talking about the conception of the comic and everything, and he's basically like, yeah, just Clint Eastwood, basically. But then he goes like, they told him at the time when they were making the comic, like, oh, he's going to shoot the gun out of the guy's hand, right? He's like, no, he's just going to shoot him and kill him. That's the whole idea. And it's like, they couldn't even do that in the fucking movie, ever. Why? Why couldn't he just shoot John Malkovich or shoot the Dragon Ball and make it explode on John Malkovich? I don't know, just something.
Something, dude.
You go entirely against the creator's intent of like, no, he's just going to fucking shoot him because he's cool. You don't need to do this absurd shit to just make it more digestible for people. He just shoots the bad guys. That's it.
Well, it's kind of hard to do a cool trick shot when he's having his dainty little run down the tiny hallway with this like big cloak. I can't get over like how bad the coat looks because it's so big. Like it looks like it was like made for like freaking Dwayne the Rock Johnson, but then they put it on freaking Josh Brolin. Like it's like 3 sizes too big, and it's like
it's just
okay,
draping over him.
I will say a good thing that came out of this is that Jonah Hex was back in the spotlight for 3 weeks. But in those 3 weeks, and I'm exaggerating, of course, but obviously comic book companies, they like to do tie-ins and stuff. So I have it right here. They reprinted a lot of the classic Tony DeZuniga comics. So there was that. I bought this in Seattle in 2010 when the movie was coming out, and this is great. But then also they got Tony DeZuniga back to do Jonah Hex No Way Back, an original graphic novel written by Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray, the guys who did the 2000s run, which is the greatest Jonah Hex run. It is to Jonah Hex what Garth Ennis's Punisher is to Frank Castle. I am not being hyperbolic. It is. They nailed the character so well with that. You'll never get any better. But anyway, we got an original graphic novel with the original creator from the new creative team.
Yep.
That's worth it alone.
Listen. We're going to do the postmortem on this real fucking quick. The movie came out critically panned. Nobody fucking saw it. It made $11 million on a $47 million budget. It opened against Toy Story 3, which made over $1 billion. It opened the same month that Red Dead Redemption came out. You can better believe I played that game before I ever saw the movie. So that is what happened. It killed the public perception of the character of Jonah Hex, but he did pop up since then in Legends of Tomorrow, which is a terrible show, but he is in there for 2 episodes. It's worth it just for him, really. There was an animated short film for DC Showcase that's like 15 minutes long, stars Thomas Jane as Jonah Hex. And
Linda Hamilton and Michael Rooker.
Yes, great freaking voice cast on that. It's a 15-minute short film. You can find it on YouTube, I'm fairly certain. It's really, really good. It is a far better adaptation of Jonah Hex. Unfortunately, since then, it's literally just been like he popped up in like an episode of Justice League Action or whatever. And then like he just appeared in an animated film called Justice League War World, which is not even the real Jonah Hex, but an alien created illusion of him where he is a supervillain basically and tries to kill Wonder Woman. It is horrible. It is dog shit. Anyway,
it's one of those things where it's like, okay, the moment you take Jonah Hex out of the Old West, I lose all interest. There's that 80s series called Hex where he's like riding around. It's like Star Wars, where he's like in space and stuff. I don't care. Yep. Like I am here for Clint Eastwood comics. Yes. That's what I'm here for. Clint Eastwood. That's it. And that's what I was going to say. Like if all 12 Jonah Hex fans out there, and I'm including both me and Martin in this category, so the 10 of you out there that are listening. Yeah, to the 10 of you that are out there, if you want a good Jonah Hex movie, I will say this. Watch the Dollars trilogy, watch any Clint Eastwood American Western, watch the original 1966 Django, and just pretend it's Jonah Hex, because it might as well be.
And if you can hunt down an out-of-print DVD copy of 1994's Blind Justice, which was directly inspired by Jonah Hex, and basically just replaced it with he got scarred with he got blind, it is somewhere out there. Apparently it's from HBO. It's on DVD. You can get it on eBay. I have not seen it. I heard it's pretty okay. It's at least a far better movie than whatever this is. That is the man, the myth, the legend, the protagonist that people should have realized, Jonah Hex. What a movie.
And man, the next year, DC followed it up with a movie I'm sure we're going to talk about, which is Green Lantern.
Oh, God.
This was
2010, man, between Iron Man 2, Kick-Ass, The Losers in Red, and this... I'm surprised the genre isn't dead sooner, man. Holy shit.
Yeah. And 2009, 2009, all we had was Watchmen, which we will talk about, and I'm not going to say my feelings on it because that's more complicated. But we had Watchmen and X-Men Origins Wolverine, and then the year after this was Green Lantern. Like, it's like, oh my god, like how, like you said, how is it that there's a year of like 5 comic book adaptations and Kick-Ass is the best one? Like, Kick-Ass is fine, but like, how is that the best one? Like, what kind of fucking bar was being set in 2010?
A very low
this
one.
This is a really exemplary period of like just kind of the subgenre in general, where it's just like, man, we really probably should have stopped, because this whole slump, this whole 3-year run, just what Andy described alone, like that 3-year run was such dog shit. I'm like, why did we even continue with this? How did this not just like
because Avengers and Dark Knight Rises came out the next year?
Exactly. Oh,
yeah,
I also
literally saved it. Saved it.
Yep.
I would like to point out, just as far as the comic book landscape goes and everything that was being made, you look at those years from 2009 to 2011, there is a big Superman Returns sequel shaped hole in that.
Oh, yes.
In that lineup.
That was
that should have been the big one that DC followed up the Dark Knight with, with Dark Side and all that kind of stuff. But like, obviously we know what happened with that. There's a big Justice League Mortal sized hole in this lineup as well. There's a lot of stuff that almost happened that got canceled, and then all that's left is they're like, well, we have Jonah Hex. Like, you know what I mean?
This is something we'll get down to as we go through more of these films, but there is a very big time curse with DC, and I love their movies. A lot of them I love. There is a big curse of just movies that were supposed to happen that just never fucking happened, basically. And that is what a lot of their legacy is stained by, unfortunately, especially in the 21st century. Having said all of that, this has been Jonah Hex. I will never watch this movie again. I know Nick will at least watch it 12 more times in his lifetime. I hope I'm not there for any of them.
Martin, we're doing a commentary for this someday.
You're right. I'm going to now, after this call, I'm going to go read the Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray comics, because they are the best fucking comics ever written for Jonah Hex. They are my favorite DC comics of all time. I adore that fucking run. I will read it again right now to make up and wash this fucking flavor out of my mouth. Jimmy Palmiotti, you follow me on Twitter. Please share this episode.
I saw your shitty movie. Please follow me back.
Please follow me back. Any parting thoughts before we go, guys?
I will say, just so we can finally relieve Marty of this suffering we're putting him through for this movie. And now you know how it fucking feels talking about Amazing Spider-Man 2. But I will say this in typical heroic efforts fashion, and I say this probably as one, the least invested in these characters among the three of us.
Right.
I just don't have a big affinity for comics in general, but especially for the DC comics. So that's just where my perspective is. So unlike these two lovely gents that I'm with, I know nothing about Jonah Hex. I don't give a fuck. I don't know what a Jonah Hex is. You know what I mean? All his like amazing supposed comic runs that came out of this, I think that's great. Haven't read a single fucking one of them. Won't read a single fucking one of them. All right. So just people understand where I'm coming from. I don't care for this soup shit most of the time. I had fun with this movie. It's a mess. It's not a good movie. I struggle to even call this a film. But it's a fun time because it's silly, and after all the insane shit we've talked about between the characters and the events that happen, I think, despite this movie being 90% bad, I think there is fun moments, because clearly something resonated with me. Not on any kind of real artistic level, but just from like fun things that happened in this, from the Acme ass weapons that they had in it. It just kind of tickled my fancy, and just how like over the top it is. I think if this was given to like a competent team, I think you could do something really interesting, whether it was the kind of bounty hunter versus serial killer idea that Andy and Marty threw out there. I think that's a brilliant idea. I think that'd be a really cool, genuinely like interesting idea for like a Western. But also I think you honestly can make a really, at the very least, interesting supernatural weird Western kind of detective story, if you will, if they just double down on like the supernatural elements and have Jonah Hex this like kind of mysterious a bounty hunter / detective figure who would go around, and how does he solve crimes and mysteries. He resurrects the dead, and I actually do kind of enjoy this film is dumb, but I do kind of like the idea of like talking to dead folks ain't natural, and that kind of component to it where the world building, if you will, of like him bringing back the corpses, and depending on how fresh the kill is, they will burn up. They'll literally burn with hellfire quicker because like it's unnatural. You're breaking the laws of nature by resurrecting this person, so he has to kind of figure out how to get information out of people before like the hellhounds or the hellfire itself gets them. Like I think there's genuinely interesting ideas here amongst this absolute fucking jambalaya of nonsense that I think if you could take those nuggets and put them into a more competently made and interesting film that doesn't have 61% reshoots, you know what I mean? I think that you could do something with it. But in light of that, they didn't, and we got what we got, and it's if anything could, again, be a shining star, an example for like this whole era of like dog shit superhero films. I'm glad this is the shining sheriff star that rises above the rest.
The Sheriff of America.
The Sheriff of America.
I just have to do my due diligence and just recommend to the audience the good places to start with Jonah Hex. Either look up the Weird Western Tales collections. All this stuff's on Amazon. You could look up the Weird Western Tales collections. Any volume of the Justin Gray, Jimmy Palmiotti run, because it's anthological, so you can start anywhere. I would recommend starting with No Way Back, because that's a full story. It's kind of like reading a Jonah Hex movie. Tony DeZandiga has great art. Fantastic. Also, Jonah Hex Shadows West is a collection of his Vertigo series, and that has a lot of supernatural elements in it. So if you like the horror aspects of it, definitely check that out. But all of those are better than this. Like I said, if you want to watch a Jonah Hex movie, just watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, because it's the exact same thing. And it's much better than this.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, everyone, that has been Jonah Hex. This has been Heroic Efforts. We have talked surprisingly longer than the actual movie is because, man, we just had so much to say, I guess, on this one.
It is ironic that normally the name refers to the heroic efforts of the filmmakers, but now it refers to the heroic efforts of the hosts of this podcast for forcing themselves through this piece of crap again, just for the entertainment of the audience. I hope you're all welcome. I'm recording this off my phone because my fucking laptop sucks. This is how much I wanted to talk about this movie. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. See you next time.
Hey, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. It really helps us out. And be sure to tune in next week for more Heroic Efforts. Heroic Efforts is a No More Talking production. All rights reserved.